Welcoming traveler. Get ready to level up in fantasy football.
What is going on, Fantasy Football RPG Nation? It's your boy, FF Mike Cash. I am joined tonight on a special Tuesday evening by Evan. Say hi, Evan.
Evening, everybody.
How are you?
Doing pretty good, Mike. Good to see everybody.
It's so sad. Corey's not here, so I'm going to have to do my best Corey impression the whole night, just playing point guard, trying to keep everybody on topic. And normally I'm the one that he needs to keep on topic.
So,
and I'm also joined.
You're just going to Jason Kidd it, right?
Yeah.
Just get all these assists in here. Yeah.
Also joined by our special guest, Eric.
Hey, it's good to be back. Life's been
Man.
crazy. Just living the dream here in Spaceship Earth.
Are you even allowed to be here, or does your boss know you're not working right now?
She does. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Finally,
Cool.
Got some stuff off my plate here. Not quite as tired. Feeling ready to go. Excited to be back with the boys.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. So tonight's episode, we're going to go over how to push the chips in and compete, / some buy lows that we're really excited about. But first, we're going to dive into some news and notes. But before that, we're going to do a quick question. So I had peanut butter toast for dinner. What is your perfect toast topping? Evan, I'll let you go first.
You know, I'm a big apricot jam
Ooh,
fan.
I didn't know you were bougie like that.
Mike, I mean, I got it. I got the engineer in me.
Got those stacks.
Yeah, sure.
Is that from
we'll go with
a local farmer's market, or where were you getting that apricot from?
Well, yeah. So when I used to live out in California, we used to have a bunch of farmers that used to make it and bring it to the farmer's market downtown. So I would always go and get it from the farmers.
Man, food to plate jam, like our food to plate fantasy football analysis. Eric, what you got?
So I'm actually not a large toast eater. I barely eat toast or bread in general. But if I am eating toast, it's got butter on it and I've got eggs on top of it.
Dang.
So eggs over easy, buttered toast. You just dip it into the yolk, eat it. Great stuff.
Not gonna lie, that's actually delightful. I'm a big fan of that.
Delicious.
Are eggs a topping though?
They can be.
Well, the butter's kind of the topping and the toast is the dip.
Yeah. Shout out to Uncle Steve for tuning in. He just called me a goober. Thank you, Uncle Steve. I would probably go with Nutella with a little bit of peanut butter and then some cut up bananas on top. That is my perfect toast. But Olivia, thank you for the toast with peanut butter and honey. Let's hit some big topics. Evan, thanks so much for doing the show notes. They're delightful. Kyler Murray, after going after Jackson Smith and Jigba all offseason in Dynasty startups, is back and is immediately a top 12 quarterback. Do we think that this was the biggest buy low ever? And how high is Kyler Murray in your Dynasty rankings right now? Evan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so we'll start out with the fact that I saw him play. I saw him move around just as well as he did pre-ACL injury. So that is very encouraging. I had him QB 12 before this. I now slotted him up to QB 11. I think he has QB 8 in Dynasty upside is realistically where I can see him if he continues to prove this. The Cardinals offense obviously leaves a lot to be desired, but he looked pretty much like the Kyler of old, of what I was used to. A little bit of rust, obviously throwing the ball, a little bit of lack of weapons for him to be able to work with. But I'm definitely excited and feel like it was a giant buy low window if you could sit on Kyler.
Yeah, he is definitely, the knee looks fine. Like any concerns that anybody had about their mobility, out the window. Follow up from earlier, Uncle Steve was not calling me a goober. He was calling out goober, which is a mix of peanut butter and jelly. So for the people at home. Eric, is Justin Fields over or under Kyler Murray in Dynasty rankings right now? Our biggest Bears fan.
So this is really tough because I think in the offseason, I was the biggest proponent of I don't like Kyler. I wanted to sell him. I wanted to get value while I still could. I thought the Cardinals would be garbage, which they're not good. Yeah. And he'd come back halfway through the season to a one-win team. They would just sit him the rest of the year and then look to move him, and I didn't know his future. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how one game can completely flip your opinion on it because it looks like they really like Kyler, and Kyler looked like old Kyler. And I think I would have Kyler over Justin Fields right now. And that's really wild for me to say, especially coming into the beginning of this year, because I was huge on the Justin Fields train. Maybe it was bear biased. I don't know. But with Justin Fields having one win this season and a Division II quarterback who was undrafted having one more win than him on the same team, I'm not feeling great about Justin Fields at the moment. And Kyler's 1-0 and looked great. So am I willing to say Kyler's all the way back at a top-tier dynasty asset? No. But do I feel a lot better about him this week than I did for last year? 100%.
Yeah. It felt like if you had him on your team already and now you're like bringing Kyler up from IR and like putting him into your infinity gauntlet, like you're just like adding the final piece so that you can just make a championship run. Very excited and very happy that he's back. But we got a lot of more news and injuries to dive into, which, perfect segue, the Bears are supposed to decide on Fields by Wednesday. If you're listening to the recorded version, that's whenever you're listening to this. Do you think that Fields is going to play? We'll be quick. Evan, yes or no? Playing?
I don't think he's playing.
I don't think so either. Eric?
I think he gets one more week. I don't think they want him to come back against the Lions. But he is going to have to come back sooner than later because of, the way that Bajan's been playing.
Yeah. If Tyson Bagent wins against the Lions, we're fully on the Justin Fields is gone?
I'm kind of on that, at least from the Bears' perspective. But they're going to play him probably the rest of the year to at least get that trade value up.
That makes sense. All right.
Yeah. I think he's going to have those last couple games to be able to prove if he is the guy that they should take a chance on or not. So after the bye week is going to be key for him.
I agree. Also, weirdly late bye week. Not a big fan. Mike, thanks for tuning in. Zimmelman, not me. He says he's quarterback 15 right now, but he can go up to quarterback 10 if they secure any mix of weapons and protection in the draft. So I can see that. I think that he's higher than that already. But I'm going to rapid fire the rest of these. So T. Higgins, not expected to play. Daniel Jones, pour one out for the homie. ACL. Freiermuth coming back off of IR. So good news. Nico Collins, 50-50. Bad news with his calf. Taylor Heineke leaves the game with an injury for his hamstring. Desmond Ridder then leads almost a game-winning drive. That was the game-winning drive, wasn't it? No. They lost.
Yeah, no, they lost. Kyler won that game.
But he put him in position to win, which is hilarious. And Justin Jefferson, 50-50 this week. Talk about adding Infinity Stones. That could be cool.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I think he's going to sit one more week and then finally come back.
Yep. All right. Time for some bad news. Not that anybody really cared that much for fantasy, but just from a human being perspective, Zay Jones was arrested on domestic battery charges. He was the wide receiver 3, and he was playing pretty well. There's some argument he could be the wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville. Injury, off the field problems. We don't know even when he's going to play again. Apparently he was too hurt to play football, but not hurt enough to be a good dude. Like, is Zay Jones... He's definitely droppable in redraft. What are you selling him for in Dynasty right now if somebody has him on the roster? Eric, you first.
I'm basically selling him for anything I can get at this point. He's a little bit older. Domestic batteries, obviously not even on a human level, awful. In a fantasy level, not good. And he was already wide receiver 3 in a pass offense that's not looking super great right now. If anybody gave me basically anything, like a taco from Taco Bell, I think I'd be willing to move Zay Jones.
Yeah. Which, P.S., you should trade tacos from Taco Bell. It's a way to boost your fantasy leagues. Makes it way more fun. And then, Evan, any thoughts on Zay Jones, or just he's a bum?
I mean, if somebody wants to give me 10% of their fab, I will gladly take 10% of their fab for Zay Jones. I don't even need a draft pick. Like, just give me some fab to be able to try and do something, anything, because he's a complete drop candidate.
Yeah, just gross on a lot of different levels. But we already hit our 2024 rookie preview, and we talked about who the quarterback 3 might be. There's an option that is no longer open to us. So Quinn Ewers is allegedly returning for his 2024. This will be his junior year, correct? Or is this like technically his senior year, but he started college when he was 12?
Yeah, so it's going to be redshirt junior year because he went into Ohio State early and was listed there and ended up redshirting that first year.
Yeah. He must have gotten bad news. So he had a grade 3 AC sprain or grade 2 AC sprain on his shoulder.
Yeah, it was a shoulder injury, AC sprain. I don't remember exactly what the grade was, but it's going to be a definite question moving forward with Arch Manning. Is he going to stay there another year and sit behind Quinn one more year?
Yeah. Talk about like a tough situation for the Texas like quarterback room. Do you want Quinn Ewers to come back? Or do you want to keep Archie Manning, one of the best quarterback prospects in a college level that we've seen in a while? Like, I might just tell Quinn to take his talents elsewhere.
I mean, look, if Arch wants to transfer to LSU, I would love to see him at LSU.
Oh my God. I would not for many reasons. But Quinn Ewers is going back to Texas. That makes the quarterback race a little bit easier to dissect, but also the quarterback 3 race is still a bloodbath between Penix, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels. Like, there are all of these options floating around, and we'll just see who gets drafted in the first round.
It also gives 25 a little bit of a shot in the arm for the quarterback class because it's been a very uninspiring quarterback class so far, what we've seen out of those guys projecting forward. So definitely gives it a shot in the arm.
Yeah, definitely needed a little bit more. Let's talk about a coach getting fired. And unfortunately, it wasn't Matt Canada, who was probably on the tip of everyone's tongue when we said coach getting fired, but Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator in Buffalo, released. Does this move the needle for any piece of Buffalo, or is this like you're starting Diggs every week? You're starting Gabe Davis as a flex play that you're hoping for an explosion. Kincaid, every week tight end option. If you said Josh Allen, I'd love to see your quarterback. Like, are you moving any of those, or is it just hopefully they get a, like we said with the 2025 class, a shot in the arm?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more stale this offense can be. Like, this offense has been very stale. If you watch the game Monday night, it was awful. It was not fun to watch. Josh Allen, we've known that turnovers are his issue, but it was very much on display. And it definitely didn't seem like the offensive play calling was helping them out.
No, they were definitely willing to let him sling it, and it was not working out. James Cook, fumble Ruski on his first game in a while. Hadn't had a fumble since his first touch, but just really unfortunate. Last note that we have here, we're going to do game previews, whether or not we prepared for them. Let's talk about 3 games. I'm going to put 3 of them out there, and then I'm going to let you guys talk about the one you want to talk about. So we got Eagles-Chiefs, Monday Night Football. That one's exciting. We have one that I didn't expect to be exciting, but Cardinals-Texans. Or you can talk about Cowboys-Panthers. So Evan, take your pick of those 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Texans game, the Texans and Cardinals, mainly because I don't want to take the Eagles because somebody else should really talk about them. So
Fair.
I don't get slammed for some hometown bias here.
Yeah.
But it should be a really excited game. We're seeing what is looking like the best rookie quarterback in this class right now, and CJ Stroud and what he's been doing. I still make my case for Anthony Richardson, but CJ Stroud has been nothing short of fantastic this season. We see Kyler coming back. It's going to be really interesting to watch this matchup. I think Houston's only projected as a 4-point favorite, maybe 4.5, depending on what book you're looking at right now. I think it's somewhere around that 47, 48 point range for that game, which means there should be a lot of points scored in this game. We're going to see what Kyler can do, just kind of slinging the ball again, what he can do running around, and can he lead this Arizona team to another win? If they get another win, that's going to put them at 3 wins in the season. And if they get to 3 wins, they're probably going to get to 4 wins, which is probably going to knock them out of a top 5 pick, which could be very interesting to watch how that all plays out. If they're outside of the top 5, I think that pushes them more, most likely, into not being able to trade back and most likely taking offensive line. Considering that some of the skill players are probably going to be going early, probably means that Kyler is going to be there a lot longer term as well. And frankly, I also wouldn't mind just watching the Texans win this game, because that would help my case that I said the Texans were going to be an 8-win team this year.
Yeah, that was originally on our Bold Takes episode, and now it's looking like a foregone conclusion. So great call. We were all way too low on the Texans. Eric, would you like to talk about Cowboys-Panthers or Eagles-Chiefs?
I would like to talk about Cowboys-Panthers.
I didn't expect that.
Because I'm wondering if this will be one of the first NFL games ever that a team wins by 3 touchdowns with no offensive touchdowns scored. So that should be pretty interesting in itself. I am not shocked that my preseason bold takes about Bryce Young being better, about Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud is wrong, because they just flatly look better. Not shocked. What I am shocked about is Bryce Young, who is supposed to be the most polished and someone who is known for getting rid of the ball quickly and making good decisions, cannot do that. And looked horrible against my Bears on Thursday night. And we do not have a good defense. I mean, the Montez Sweat pickup definitely helps. But I'm interested to see if they can salvage any part of Bryce and what this means for the future going forward with the Panthers too. He has looked absolutely horrible, and having Micah Parsons breathing down his neck all game is not going to help that. I mean, we saw what that Cowboys defense did to the Giants twice this year with subpar quarterback play. This is going to be a rout, obviously, but I want to see if there's any more progression from Bryce Young. And then this has fantasy implications for next year for the Bears as they pursue that number 1 overall pick and what they do with their quarterbacks next year, since the Panthers give away that first-round pick to the Bears for Bryce Young, which looks like one of the worst trades ever at the moment. So thank you, Panthers.
Oh, man.
But I'm not starting any Panthers at all. I have no hope in any of them. And honestly, if you have a better option than Dak, which you probably don't if you took Dak in a super flex, I don't think he's going to have to pass a lot in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of handing off to Pollard and a lot of defensive points.
Yeah, we actually got a great question in the chat. I'll throw this up to whoever wants to answer it first, but does Pollard break out of his slump against the Panthers?
I think he does. I think you're going to see them make this a get-right game for Pollard and really try to feed him a lot, because there's going to be no threat of the Panthers scoring on them.
Yeah, this is one of those games that if the Cowboys get up by 9 points, that feels like an insurmountable lead, like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers are one of the worst run defenses in the league right now, which is surprising, honestly, for how good their defensive line is. But yeah, they haven't been able to stop a nosebleed running against them.
I wonder how much of that is that they're actually a bad run defense versus like teams just want to run the ball because there's no threat on the other side. Like, you're not worried about losing the game because Bryce Young is running a whole like crazy. You're worried that you're going to lose the game because you throw a pick, because you make a stupid mistake, because you do something wrong. So,
and just to put it into perspective for them too, Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, lost to a Division II undrafted quarterback on a team that is talent-wise probably as bad as the Panthers. That's not good.
Yeah. I mean, one of his most recent matchups was against the Colorado School of Mines. So then he beat the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, correct.
Let's do Bum. There's another question here. If the Bears wind up going quarterback early, what 3 teams would Justin Field benefit? So, like, what are your favorite landing spots for a Justin Fields trade? I can go just off the top of the head real quick. I would love to see him get traded to the Rams if Matt Stafford is thinking about easing his way out. Love to see him get traded to the Buccaneers, give themselves a little, they're probably going to play themselves out of early quarterback considerations so they can get one of those. Or let's talk about the Raiders. They have Devontae Adams. They have Josh Jacobs. They're probably going to be a little too far back in order to end up picking a premium quarterback. So, I don't know. I think there's a couple of good landing spots there. You guys hate any of those options?
No, I really like that Raiders one. I think he would fit pretty well there. And if they get a good coach and a good offensive scheme around him, having Josh Jacobs and Devonta Adams would be a great landing spot for him. Off the top of my head, that was probably the best one I could have come up with too. But I don't hate that Rams one either. I didn't think of the Rams.
Yeah, just as a, place that Matt Stafford can ride out into the sunset. But hope that answers your question, Mike. Evan, what you got?
Well, I was going to say, what about real quick, Minnesota?
That's fair. I mean, they're probably going to play themselves.
Look, Kirk can't be signed until he officially becomes a unrestricted free agent. The question is whether they ride out with Dobbs or not. And if they do choose to go with Dobbs, then are they drafting a quarterback? I mean, they're going to be picking late enough. I mean, they're looking like a playoff team at this point. So they're not going to have a chance at getting one of the stud quarterbacks in this draft. So that could be another avenue to potentially try and go get a starter.
Yeah.
My only pause with that would be an in-division trade. And I don't know if the Bears are going – if they think there's any sort of talent or semblance to save Fields' career, I don't think they want to face him twice a year. I think if you see him traded to the Vikings, that's a big indictment on Justin Fields that they think he is broken and will never get fixed. A dark horse team might be the Commanders if Belichick ends up going there, only because he might want a quarterback. I don't know. That's something that popped in my head too. But again, that would be a long shot as well.
Yeah. I didn't expect to talk about Justin Fields that much today. But, all right, one more game preview. I'll knock it out as the only non-Eagles fan. I think we all have a little Eagles love there. And then also, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, so I have to like the Chiefs. Required Taylor Swift plug. So, if you like football, which if you're listening to this podcast, you really like football, because this is the nichest of the nichest football talk. Eagles Chiefs is going to be one of the most fun games of the year. These are stud defenses with great quarterbacks on Monday night in primetime. There's no distractions. You don't have to worry about, what am I missing in the afternoon games? It's just Eagles. It's just Chiefs. It's the Kelsey brothers. It's high flying, but also somehow hard nosed. Like, they're going to have big plays with A.J. Brown. They're going to have deep balls with Marquez Valdez-Scantling that are going to just drive us crazy. I just said A.J. Brown and MVS in the same phrase, so that sucks. Like, this is just going to be a fun football game, regardless of which way it turns, because this is going to be a good matchup. I think A.J. Brown's a must-start option. I think Devontae Smith's a must-start option. I think DeAndre Swift's a must-start option. Did I say Swift tight? Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift. You're starting all the Eagles. You're starting Patrick Mahomes. You're starting Travis Kelce. You're throwing a dart at a Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, probably Rashee Rice. It's just going to be fun.
Are you starting Pacheco?
Yeah, I think you have to. Like, can you name – let's not go through that right now, but, like, can you name 15 running backs that you feel good starting? It's like McCaffrey, Eckler, Kamara. Throw something at the wall and hope for the best. There's obviously other options, but it gets real bleak around the 12th mark. So
yeah, the Eagles have the least rush attempts against them in the entire NFL, and by a sizable margin.
That's crazy.
Interesting question. Just because we're kind of seeing a different Eagles and Chiefs team this year a little bit. Do you think a more likely score outcome would be 17-14 or 38-35? is I'm leaning the
So-
17-14 the way their defenses have been
Yep.
playing,
I agree.
which is wild to think about.
Under 40 instead of over 40.
I definitely
Yeah.
would hit the under if you're betting.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that takes us through all of our news and notes. Let's get into the meat potatoes of the show. We're going to talk about buy low options and pushing the chips in tips. We already went over how to rebuild. We went over what happens when things aren't going the right way. Let's talk about on the flip side of that, whether you are just a player away from making a championship run or you're trying to add some depth. Like, Evan, at what time do you know that it's time to go for that championship? Like, when do you start saying, like the Rams a couple years ago, screw them picks, let's go get it?
Yeah, so I'm really starting to take stock. The first 4 weeks, I want to see how my team's doing. If I'm 4-0 through the first 4 weeks, I'm usually looking at it going, okay, if I'm 4-0 and I have a top 2 in points for, then okay, I'm going to try and get in before everybody else starts to get in, see if I can be able to get a player before all of the other competing teams start sending out offers to those rebuilding teams or to those teams that aren't scoring quite as well in the league. But comfortability wise, I'm probably going to try and wait until week 7, week 8. Obviously, you have to come with a stronger offer at that point. So the sooner you can get in and pick a direction, the better. But the longer you can hold your picks, the more flexibility it gives you to be able to adjust and deal with some of those massive injuries that happen.
Yeah. I love the call out on getting in there early. And then also, like, there's this like weird life cycle with picks where they gain value in the offseason and then they kind of go away as you get in season. If you take a player over 29, you can just take that cycle and flip it. Like week 8 of the season, all of a sudden Derrick Henry's worth like a first again. You couldn't sell him for a first 6 months ago. So if you get in early, you can buy those guys a little cheaper. It's a little better. But Eric, do you have any other thoughts on like when you know it's time or just when you know you know?
I think that was a really good outline there by Evan. I think more my thing when I kind of know that I'm out of it is if I hit about 6 losses before the trade deadline. If I'm sitting at 6 losses, I'm thinking I'm basically going to have to run the table to make the playoffs. And at that point, do I really think I have a shot at the championship? So usually when I hit that 6 loss mark is where I'm like, okay, I need to start putting feelers out there. I need to start jumping into people's inboxes and like, hey, are you looking to go for the title this year? Are any players on my team you're interested in? It's just start conversations, things like that. Sometimes around 5 wins, if it's quick enough and maybe it's just not your year, a big gun on your team gets injured. I think the really hard part is when you're sitting at like, I don't know, 5-1, 4-2, records like that, and you're feeling really great. And then you get like the Kirk Cousins Achilles injury. And you had this great starting quarterback and you were feeling good. And this happened to one of my teams, undefeated. And all of a sudden, him and my other quarterback, Daniel Jones, went down. And I have one quarterback and none left on the rest of my team. And now I'm sitting here scrambling, like, what do I do? Do I try to trade away all my future assets to push in and go for it this year? Or do I sit back knowing I get Kirk Cousins back next year? So that's where I think that can get really tricky is when that big injury hits your big guy right by the trade deadline.
Yeah. I had RPG nights. I had Achan, Richardson, Mike Williams, Khalil Herbert, and I want to say like 2 or 3 more players that ended up, and James Conner all end up on IR. And I was just like, well, this team's 5-1, but this roster isn't. So being a little fluid with that is important. But Evan, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say how Eric was setting that up almost kind of sounded perfect to lead into the next question here of how far do you really want to dip into your draft capital when going to make these moves? Are you willing? So talking about this year, using this year as the year 2023, looking at the 2024 class and 2025 class. First of all, how much have you really looked at those classes to try and get an initial pulse on those classes? What are they going to be heavy in? What are they going to be light in? What does your team need? Are you able to say, okay, well, right now it doesn't look like a very heavy quarterback class. I really need a quarterback. So 2025, like, let me go try and get that quarterback and use that 25 capital and 24 capital to be able to go get one of the upper echelon guys that can produce for a little bit longer, that give me a little bit more stability, that then come later, closer to the trade deadline, I can then go and say, oh, well, let me tear down off of this guy. Let me go, go get a older quarterback, and be able to get an extra piece like a running back or something along those lines.
Yeah. So I personally don't really like to move picks out 2 years in advance unless I'm positive like this team is legit and it's like young players that are going to continue to be great for an extended period of time. Maybe not necessarily at the running back position because every year there's just random running backs that you can go buy for a third. But when you're talking about your wide receivers and your quarterbacks and even your tight end, if you have those cornerstone pieces built there, like, okay, I'm more comfortable moving that away because I know, let's say everything goes poorly, I'm still good enough that I can drive that pick higher, or I can offer one of those premium pieces and be like, hey, give me that and some other stuff, and then go get your pick back before tanking your value again. So 1 year out for me, but Eric, I mean, would you go 2 years out, or how do you know when to go 2 years out?
For me personally, I'm not a big fan of 2 years out because who knows what the landscape of the NFL and the players in your team can change in 2 years. If I'm going all in, if I'm looking at my team, I'm like, this is a team that can win it this year. I have no qualms trying to move all of my 24 draft capital because I would rather have an impact player that lets me try to go win money this year than not go all the way in and wonder where that pick's going to land for next season on a player that may or may not hit when I draft them. So I would rather the production now than later, but getting to 2-3 years out into draft picks, you just enter this land of, will the league still be around? Will that still be a good value pick? Will my team tank and all of a sudden I just lost the first overall pick 2 years out? So I'm more on that line of I try not to deal out further than 1 year of draft capital because I can better predict where that draft pick is going to land for my team.
Yeah.
So I'll say for me, I really don't have an issue trading that 25 capital as long as I do it later and closer to the trade deadline. So if I'm going to make a move early on because I know my team is that team and I'm able to look at it week 5, week 6 and say, this is it. Like, this is the team that I'm going to be pushing the chips in. I know I'm going to be doing it. I'm using that 24 capital earlier, week 5, week 6, to be able to go make those trades, to try and get those impact pieces, to be able to allow me to confirm that by week 8, week 9. And then come week 9, week 10 is when I'm using that 25 capital then to be able to push all of the chips in. And when I'm looking for players, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but when I'm looking for players, I'm not looking for guys using that capital to be able to just say, oh, like, this is a 1 year and done. Unless it's running back, then running back, I'm looking at a 1 year window. But wide receiver and tight end and quarterback, I'm looking at a 2 year window. So when I'm trying to use that capital to trade for somebody, I'm looking at somebody that is projected to still be valuable and still be able to hold value going into the offseason, through the offseason, into next year. So it gives me that flexible asset still.
100%.
So real quick, I kind of this goes right along with this topic here. So there was a team that I had Josh Allen, and the rest of my team was very bad. It was old. I made a run for a year or two, and it was like Thielen was my top receiver. Like it was going bad. I know a rebuild needed to come. I ended up trading Josh Allen for Trey McBride, Spears, Tillman, 24 first, 24 second, 25 first, 25 third, and 26 first. So again, this trade will have no idea how it goes for the next 3 years, but I just got 3 years of extra assets. And right now that 24 pick looks like it's going to be first overall for the guy who got it. But is that going to be true 2 years from now, 3 years from now? So, like, what do you guys think about that? Just as a talking point.
I love that idea. Maybe love that idea if that guy's team is loaded because you don't want to sell all of your picks for all of those years. But on the flip side of that, for a rebuilding team, like, you're adding to your treasure trove of picks, but we talk about like league security. Is this one of the RPG leagues?
Yeah.
Then the league will be around and like everything will be okay.
This is a league I think will be around for a while.
So when you note that security, it makes a lot more sense. If this is like randos on the internet, scary. RPG leagues, safe and cozy. So don't love it. I would rather get more picks sooner or all in one draft class. That way you can own that board. When it's spread out, like if that's the 112, the 111, the 112, all of a sudden that looks terrible.
Right. So. Just total gamble too, but like fits into the conversation we just had about moving future assets and receiving future assets.
I may be in the outside looking in here, but I still don't think that's even close to Josh Allen's value. I get it. Three first round picks is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but having it be in 26, that diminishes the value to the equivalency of a 24 second to me. And so the way that I'm going to be looking at that is 2 seconds, a first and 24, a 25, a 25 third, Spears, who could probably get you a 24 second. So, I mean, sure, it's draft capital and it's a flexibility way of looking at it, but Josh Allen still, even with his downside this year, is still performing at a upper level for most fantasy football teams, and he still has the name brand value. He has insulated value. He's going to be able to hold value. He's not going to drop outside of the top 5 in quarterbacks, even with this class coming in, even with the next class coming in, unless he has some catastrophic injury.
Or have the most interceptions and turnovers in football over the last 5 years, but that's fine.
Well, anyway, Josh Allen is good at fantasy football. We don't know how good he is at real football. We hit on this already a little bit, Evan. Like when we're talking about who to target, you talk about a 1-year window, a 2-year window. Something that I really enjoy when I'm going for a championship is that you take kind of like that trade that just happened. You take a bunch of pieces that you never know when you're going to start them or not, and then you combine that into one premium piece. Like go get yourself a crown jewel that you can plug into your lineup and be like, this gives me a positional advantage every week. And maybe if you're lucky enough, like send 2 firsts and a bench warmer for AJ Brown. And that bench warmer for a competitor can still be a valuable piece. We're talking like Christian Watson in the offseason. We're talking like Dalton Kincaid with a bunch of hype. We're talking about, but if your team is that stacked, you're not playing them. So now you can go get yourself something real shiny. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it comes down to consolidation of assets, and it comes down to most of the time when I have a highly competitive team that I'm trying to go for the championship, it's a studs and duds approach. I'm pushing all the chips in and taking my gamble on if a injury is going to absolutely ruin me, then so be it. The cards weren't dealt that way to me, and they didn't fall the way that I needed them to. But when I'm looking at it, I'm definitely trying to consolidate the bench assets. When it gets to that week 10 to week 12 range, I'm really starting to look at playoff schedules. When I'm starting to go for trades, I'm really looking at running backs in that 1-year window, like I had already kind of talked about. I'm looking at wide receivers and quarterbacks in that 2-year window. And then tight ends. I mean, you know who the studs are at tight end. If you're not going to get one of those studs, then you're probably not really a true competitive team.
Wholeheartedly agree. I want to hit on one more thing before we dive into the next segment where we'll talk about what you would actually offer for some of these players and truly find some buy low opportunities. Look at your league's bench. How many players can you fit on there? And then look at your draft picks. If you have 10, 20, 24 fourths and only 3 bench spots, those fourths are not helping you. If you have 1 bench spot and all of these draft picks, those picks are not helping you. Consolidate those into something that you can actually fit onto your roster, especially like there's some I play in it's a league I co-managed with my dad, like super, super shallow benches. I don't care about my picks because there's players on waivers that you can go pick up. But then if it's a super, super deep bench and you have, the backup to the backup quarterback, then you can talk about picks being a little more, fun because then you're able to really stack your lineups there. Thoughts
And
on
there's
them,
a whole different aspect when you start involving best ball as well.
Oh yeah.
So
if we go into the best
stay
ball
out of
thing,
those,
it's
stay
a whole
out of
thing.
those world. Yeah, we'll
Dynasty
stay out of
best
that
ball.
world right now.
Different streets. We're talking about roads, and you're trying to get on the highway. Like, let's relax
I
a little
like to
bit.
go fast, Mike. So
Yeah. All right. So next up, instead of just saying like, "Oh, buy these guys low, 3 players you should buy low. Click here." No, we're gonna literally be like, "Here are some players that are overachieving. What would you send for these players?" Evan, thanks for setting this up. He went through and listed their KTC value, keep trade cut, which is full of sheeple clicking on things, and then their actual points that they're scoring right now. Great example. And we'll lead off here. I don't want to start at the top. Josh Dobbs, quarterback 24 on keep trade cut, which is hilarious. He's over Russell Wilson right now. Maybe that's not hilarious to some people. He's quarterback 7 in scoring. Your competing team, Superflex, tight end premium. Evan, what are you offering for Josh Dobbs right now?
24 playoff second.
I would offer that. I wouldn't take it. If I have Josh Dobbs on a roster, I'm probably competing by accident right now.
But think about it. It's also found money at this point. Most likely you got Dobbs off of waivers. You spent a chunk of fab, most likely, to be able to go get him. So you didn't really have to spend anything on him. And I've found in the past in competing leagues, whenever somebody finds somebody off of waivers, they tend to be a little bit easier to be able to get off of somebody. And if you tell me I have to throw in a 24 fourth, sure, I'll throw in a 24 fourth. Or you want to get my 24 third, then kick me a 24 fourth that then I can try and package up 2 fourths to be able to go get somebody else that's super old, super crusty, and may just be a injury contingency.
Yeah, BRB, I'm offering a playoff second for Josh Dobbs right now. I'll let you know how it goes. Anyway, Eric, 24 second, would you go any higher than that?
I would not get into a first territory with Dobbs. But I do also agree with you, Mike, that if I have Dobbs, I'm waiting until somebody offers me a mid to early second before I'm moving him. I might settle on that late 24 second, but I'm waiting until somebody offers me a little bit better.
I would even just like put him out there and be like, hey, this is an offer that I have right now. Can anybody beat it?
I think that late 24, I would feel a little bad about. The mid 24 feels about right. High 24, I'm ecstatic. For a second round pick. Because I think you can get that, especially on a contending team. I definitely think you can get that deal with Dobbs. But I do also think you're right that if you have Dobbs on your team, you might accidentally be competing this year because it's basically free top 10 quarterback value.
Crazy. Other top 10 quarterback value, top 3 quarterback. And I'm actually really curious with this one. So Sam Howell, he's a keep trade cut quarterback 16. I didn't think that he was going to be good for fantasy. I didn't think he was going to be good for real life. Fantasy is good. Real life, the jury's still out. Evan, I offer you a playoff 24 first. Would you give me Sam Howell?
Solely based off of the fact that I think he's going to be starting and playing the entire year next year as the Commanders' starting quarterback, I would also ask for a playoff third.
Okay. I think if I'm competing, I'm a profound Sam Howell not believer, but he's proved me wrong and he's crushing it. I think I would send that for him right now on a competing team. And just keep riding the lightning. Like, he's going to have some great games. He's going to have some stinkers, but their defense got even worse. So he's going to have to air it out. So Eric, would you offer anything more than a first and a third?
No, I don't know if I'd even want to offer a first for Hal. I think he's playing great this year, and I've been really, really impressed. And honestly, it's one of the biggest surprises of the year for me is him being if you would have told me at the beginning of the season Sam Howell's a top 5 fantasy quarterback, I would have laughed harder than you did at me with Anthony Richardson. But I am of the belief he will not be the starting quarterback of the Commanders all season next year, as I think they're going to bring in a new coaching staff. I think they're going to clean out a lot of the Commanders' front office, and I think they're going to want to go get their guy. And I think they will have a top 15, if not top 10 pick. And I just don't think Hal is the future there. So I don't want to mortgage away a first on a quarterback that I'm never going to be sure is going to be the starter next season.
Okay. I think the beginning and end of this argument is, do you think Sam Howell is a starter in 2024? If you do, he's worth a first. If you don't, he's not worth a first.
So that's kind of my threshold with the quarterbacks, that if I think I get you for the rest of the year and I get one more year of you, absolutely a first, no doubt. But if I'm not sure about you next year, then I don't think I want to give up more than a second. And I was proven wrong on that on Geno Smith. Like, I definitely did not think he was going to be a long-term starter, and he might be like a 3-4 year starter in Seattle. Should have given up that first for Geno.
No, he's a pumpkin now.
He did turn into a pumpkin recently.
Geno's a pumpkin now. But last 7 games, how many times has Sam Howell had less than 40 attempts?
Oh, once maybe?
Yeah, maybe
once.
And how many did he have that game?
23. It was a down game. It was against Atlanta.
Ew.
Yeah, okay. Arthur Smith doesn't play a full game of football. He plays with a running clock. But, all right, quarterbacks, I think at the beginning of it, if they think you have a job, send a first for them. If you don't, do otherwise. Let's go through some other positions, and maybe we'll circle back to some
real quick, just super quick. Of the 3 that are listed here, which I actually think is an interesting question, which one would you trade the most for? Sam Howell, Josh Dobbs, or Baker Mayfield?
Sam Howell, easily.
Yeah,
I think he's the youngest, performing the best, with the easiest path to a job next year.
You don't think? I think Baker might be the easiest to a job next year, because I think the Bucs might make the playoffs.
And I would agree with Eric on that. I was going to push back, Mike. I think Baker has the easiest path to a job. I think Sam Howell has the highest upside, and I think Dobbs probably has the safest floor, because Dobbs is getting the running potential, and he's actually getting a bunch of rushing yards this year, which is pushing that floor up.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, running backs. When you were trying to push the chips in, this is the only time you should buy running backs. If you are stuck in the middle, sell your running backs. If you are rebuilding, do not buy running backs unless they're at a super huge value and you can flip them later. But let's start with a fun one. All off season, another buy low that everybody missed on, and now maybe you're buying high. Alvin Kamara, running back 14 on Keep Trade Cut. He's currently the running back 5. His contract expires in 2024 with a little option to get out there. Are you offering a playoff first for Alvin Kamara? Anybody?
Yes, I'll do it.
Are you offering a mid first?
No. So I'm offering a playoff first, and keep in mind the criteria for this is you are currently a top 3 team in the standings, and you're a top 3 in points for. So if I'm top 3 in both of those categories, I'm just fully expecting to have a chance at a first round buy. And if I have a chance at a first round buy, that basically locks me into that 10 through 12 range. So I very much think that if that's the case, and even worst case scenario, you're talking 110, I'll give the 110 for Alvin Kamara for the chance that he's going to be able to help me to get there this year.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's the line. Either playoff first.
I hate to not have any pushback on this one, but I'm right in line with you guys on Kamara there. If I'm being told I get a chance at the championship and I'm giving up the 10 through 12th pick, absolutely I'm in. Any higher than that, I'm not guaranteed a great spot in the playoffs, and I'm not feeling awesome about it.
So the only pushback that I'm going to have is the fact that he's at the Rams and he's at the Bucks the last 2 games. So that would be the semifinals and finals, and they've been 2 of the better run defenses this year. So that would be one thing to caution with it. But besides that, all wheels up.
Yeah. Here's a funky one. Kyron Williams. When he was playing, he was getting 99.9% of the work. Now that he's not playing, like everyone's forgotten about him and like he doesn't exist anymore. Would you send a 24 playoff first for Kyron Williams?
No chance.
Eric?
Not unless I know he's healthy. I'm not feeling good about it.
Oh, I don't even care if he's healthy. There's just no chance. I'm not doing it. For a running back that has basically 0 draft capital associated with him, to an offense that who knows what the heck's happening with that offense. They very well could go into let's just see what can happen. And at that point, they're going to be having to throw the ball a lot because they're going to be behind in basically every game. And then you combine that with the fact that he's already been hurt this year and his size was a concern already coming out, which leads to a higher potential for another injury the rest of the year as it goes on. No chance. You can get a playoff second out of me, maybe tacking on a third, but I don't even know if I would give up a playoff second and playoff third.
I don't know if I would even sell him unless I'm getting a first, just because he's so young that you could probably keep using him next year unless they draft somebody, but you're looking at them in a 1-year window. Like it's tough because he's not the individual talent that you feel great about his job next year. So I would probably not. I don't think I'm sending a first for him, but I think I would send a high second or a mid second or really any second and just push it in.
I mean, look, the list of running backs that I would actually send a first for is probably pretty small as well.
Yeah, I think it's Kamara, CMC, the super young guys that are exciting. But you're not getting them for just a first. One more running back. Let's talk about, this is a fun one, Raheem Mostert. Currently the running back 3 in scoring, which is ridiculous to say out loud about Mostert. But on Keep Trade Cut, he's the running back 33. He's 1 billion years old. Achan is just coming back from, his little stint on IR. We saw that they were both useful when the Dolphins were putting up 1 billion points. Like, what are you offering for Mostert? And also, what are you expecting out of him from a fantasy output for the rest of the season? Evan, we'll start with you.
Playoff second, and I've seen that deal go down in a couple leagues now. So, yeah, giving up a playoff second. And what I'm expecting out of him is probably something around the line moving forward of 10 to 12 rushes a game, probably about 80 to 90 yards on those rushes, highly efficient yardage, and then a touchdown every other game.
Yeah, you're really praying for that breakaway touchdown to make your money.
Yep.
But Eric, would you sell him if you are not competing for anything less than a second? We're talking like literally what you think will be the 301.
I think I would sell him for a third.
Okay.
I'm. This isn't a total disagreement with Evan. I have big concerns about the Dolphins' offense as it gets colder and not being quite as fast. And we haven't seen what that looks like. And we've already seen a little decline in production. I'm a little bit worried in the colder weather what that offense is going to look like, especially running, because speed doesn't tend to get better as the weather gets colder. So I'm a little hesitant of what that's going to look like. And I don't think I would want to pay more than a low second, high third for him. And I think I would take a high third selling him.
They do play the Raiders, and then they're at the Jets. That could be a cold game. But then they're home for Tennessee, the Jets, and Dallas, which Miami in December is still very warm. Then they go at Baltimore. Sorry, week 17.
Well, let's also remember this offense is averaging more than a yard per carry than the second most efficient rushing offense,
which is ridiculous.
which is insane. They're averaging 5.9 yards a carry
Yeah.
in this offense, and the Ravens, who are a fantastic running football team, are averaging 4.8. So definitely something from an efficiency standpoint. Now, also keep in mind, they only have 227 carries this year, which is relatively low on the totem pole. That would be bottom third. So the rushing attempts are usually not there, which is why you're banking highly on an efficient running back and being able to utilize those probably 20 to 22 rushes a game that they're going to get, which is now going to be split between Achane and Mostert.
Which is brutal. All right, let's dive into some wide receivers. We only have 5 minutes left, so I'm only going to hit 2 spicy ones, and then we'll close on out. Tight ends, don't buy any unless they're good. That's my entire – we're not even going to open that up for discussion unless you guys really want to talk about tight ends. But wide receiver, we're going to talk about 2 ancient beings. These are immortals. They were there when the words were written. There was the prince that was promised. These guys are the ones that wrote the promise back in the land before time. Adam Thielen. He's a keep trade cut wide receiver 57. Currently the wide receiver 9. Evan, what are you offering for him? And how are you plugging him into your lineups? Is he a wide receiver 2? Is he wide receiver 3? What's he to you?
Yeah, so on a highly competitive team, I'm fully expecting him to be a wide receiver 3 for me. You look at his target share, and it really hasn't wavered much at all this year. Obviously, his yards these last couple games have gone down. He's relatively dependent on Bryce Young for those yards because his ADOT has been relatively low this year. But in PPR leagues, he's going to be able to get you those PPR points. I feel like he's a solid double-digit type of player. I feel like you can put him into your wide receiver 3, or if your league only plays with 2 wide receivers, which what are you doing? It should be a 3 wide receiver league. Then you can put him into your flex and fully expect double-digit points every week. Is double-digit points good enough for you on a competing team would be the question that I would have. I think it would be pretty safe to assume that he's probably going to be projected somewhere in that like 13 to 14 point range every single week going the rest of the season. And I would be happy to take that. Definitely not giving up a first. If somebody asks you for a first, just move on. Try and get some other wide receiver. There's plenty of other win now wide receivers, but a playoff second, playoff third on top of it. I do that. I get it. It's a lot to pay for a 33-year-old wide receiver that is probably only a 1-year player, but I'm able to keep my first if I'm doing that.
Yeah. Eric, real quick, thoughts on Adam Thielen?
Real quick on Adam Thielen, I think I would be willing to go as high as a mid-second. And because I think he has another, not this high of a performance next year, but I do think he's going to be a decently performing receiver into next year too. After that, I think is when he hits the tomb. But I think you're getting a year and a half for a mid-second. I'm good with that.
Cool. Other ancient receiver, let's talk about Devontae Adams. Working with Aiden O'Connell, he's getting hyper-targeted. He's the wide receiver 25 on Keep Trade Cut, but the wide receiver 14 in our hearts and our scoring. Evan, what are you offering for him, and how do you view him?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a playoff team and I have a early second to be able to throw at him, I'm gladly throwing in early second and my playoff third. If I am having to give up my playoff first, once again, I'm fully expecting it to be that 10 through 12 range because of the stipulations that we put on this section. And in that case, I'm asking for Devontae Adams and a third.
That makes sense. Eric?
I don't think I'm giving up more than a second for Devonta Adams at this point because I don't know how good of quarterback play we're going to see from the Raiders for the rest of the year. And I'm not sure if that improves next year either, or if he's going to be on the Raiders and what that means for his future. I think it's really uncertain, and I don't want to give up my first for uncertainty.
That's fair. I'll also say, real quick, and use this in your dynasty trades, Devontae Adams hasn't had his bye week yet, so that's why he's the wide receiver 14 in total scoring. Points per game, he is much, much lower. So use that to your advantage. Use points per game if it's higher for you. Like whichever one is higher, when you message the guy, be like, this is the wide receiver blank in blank. And then they'll be like, oh, wow, that's great. But I think that closes out our buy lows and our pushing the chips in championship winning. I mean, man, can we think about a better way to celebrate with a championship than a little bit of W? Eric, you want to tell the people where they can find W?
You can find W on the W website. W.com. Is that what it is?
It's w.gg. And use code FFRPG at checkout. We'll put a link everywhere. There's always one in the episode description. But thanks, everybody that listened to this. If you're still here, click like and subscribe. We're getting real close to 100. We're doing a giveaway for that. So that would be freaking sweet, dude. But otherwise, this has been fun. Bye, everybody.
See y'all.
See ya.
I'm not going to lie, it broke. It's not letting me end the stream. Goodbye, everybody.
Help.
Corey, come back.